because they took the initiative.
Are you guys organized to go in if you get interests, if you are generate interest in the state, you guys go in and read like legislation?
Why don't you talk about the meeting in Atlanta?
This is a pickup team so far here.
Well,
That's a good statement.
my task force and foot crew, which includes Cindy Ayers, who's sitting across from me, we are willing to do that. We will go anywhere to any state to try to help. And Maine, part of the reason was because of that person. Andrea Boland just happened to know about EMP. And another thing that I think that a lot of them found compelling about it is that Maine is right across the street. Their neighbor is Eastern Canada, which is where the 1989 Hydro-Quebec storm hit. And in fact, they were affected by some of that too, as well as part of the Northeast blackout. So Maine was no stranger to these threats and to the consequences of blackouts. In fact, they had a serious blackout just from snowstorms that had occurred that winter, and so that raised people's consciousness about the idea of
Hey, here's the real important part coming up.
Months or years.
I was asked in the congressional testimony I did a short while back whether NERC was positioned to deal with the full range of outages, and I said I thought probably tree branches were a little too much for them, but they could probably handle the squirrels.
Right.
We lost power for a week in El Derecho last year. I know exactly.
Yeah, we did too.
Okay. Before you leave this, Peter, talk about the Atlanta meeting.
Yes, there's going to be a meeting beginning on 11 August of the National Council of State Legislatures, and our EMP coalition is going to have a substantial presence there to appeal to the states to educate them.
Including Andrea.
Yeah, including Andrea. Andrea Boland, in fact, is leading our delegation down there to appeal to the states to educate them on this threat and to encourage them to undertake state initiatives as a way of supplementing or as an alternative if Washington fails to act on this. The people should know, and the state should have the option of knowing that other states are taking initiatives. And there are other states, by the way, that are already moving in this direction. I know North Carolina is very interested in taking initiatives, as is Texas. Alaska was one of the first states under Sarah Palin. They actually passed a bill through the state legislature calling upon the Department of Homeland Security to work with Alaska and Utah. So some states are already aware of this threat and are moving on their own to act to protect their people.
We've got a few more minutes, yes.
I have a question, given the obvious difficulty of getting things out in Washington. And then we have, for example, the growing, developing smart grid. It doesn't appear that there's a lot of security being built into the smart grid. So it's sounding like it's becoming the smart but windy grid. And then we've dissolved the strategic grain reserve that we used to have during the Cold War.
Smart
So
grid.
it seems like our ability to withstand food crises that could be a result, it makes all these things more urgent. Is there something at the local level that people can also do to complement these efforts at the national level, whether it's microgrids or local food, something or other, that we can become more resilient at the local level, and so everyone can take part in this effort, not just let folks at Washington fix it for us?
I think it's largely going to be a matter of state governance. And you can't. It's sort of hard to do things city by city or county by county or whatever. But the state
province
most state governments know their turf reasonably well.
Municipal level
Position to get insurers and other businesses that are highly relevant to this, and the utilities working together in public-private partnerships. I think the state
to all the grid,
state by state, is probably the way to go. Peter?
You're going to do business in our land, you're going to do it.
I have a question for you. The severest critics of
just add it to the electrical
EMP
code.
threat,
Check.
like that. Is that yield has to be in the megaton range. The weapon, therefore, is going to be very heavy and therefore can only be launched by an ICBM. Can you answer?
Real important.
Sure, those are myths.
Myths.
And I'm afraid a lot of those myths derive from my own work at the CIA.
Thank you, sir.
Some 20 years ago, when we identified the preferred Soviet ICBM was the SS-18 Mod 1, which had a huge 25 megaton warhead on it. But they were going after our hardened, critical, military critical infrastructures, which were hardened against EMP. And so they wanted to generate the strongest field strengths they could at that time.
Pay real
and
close
also
attention.
At that time, the technology of enhanced or super EMP weapons was not known. When you're talking about the civilian critical infrastructures, the grid, communications, transportation systems, these have never been hardened against EMP. They're very soft targets. And one of the things the Commission did is we took modern technologies from all of these infrastructures, we put them in the EMP simulators, and looked at the field strengths that were necessary. They will fail at very low field strengths. In fact, we could not come up with a low enough yield where we said, well, you don't have to worry about weapons of this yield or below because the EMP isn't strong enough. Any nuclear weapon, doesn't matter what the yield is, doesn't have to be a super EMP weapon. Basically at 30 kilometers altitude, you don't need a missile either, by the way. You can take a meteorological balloon and get up to 30 kilometers with a crude first-generation weapon. And if you detonated that anywhere over the eastern seaboard, it would probably collapse the eastern grid.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's do that again.
Sure, those are myths, and I'm afraid a lot of those myths derive from my own work at the CIA, some 20 years ago, when we identified
weather balloon.
Preferred Soviet ICBM was the SS-18 Mod 1, which had a huge 25 megaton warhead on it. But they were going after our hardened, critical, military critical infrastructures, which were hardened against EMP. And so they wanted to generate the strongest field strengths they could at that time. And also at that time, the technology of enhanced or super EMP weapons was not known. When you're talking about the civilian critical infrastructure,
paying attention,
communications, transportation systems, these have never been hardened against EMP. They're very soft targets.
Never been hardened.
One of the things the Commission did is we took modern technologies from all of these infrastructures, we put them in the EMP simulators, and looked at the field strengths that were necessary. They will fail at very low field strengths. In fact, we could not come up with
God bless you,
low
sir,
enough yield where we said, well, you don't have to
truth.
worry about weapons of this yield or below because the EMP isn't strong enough.
God bless your heart.
Doesn't matter what the yield is. Doesn't have to be a super EMP weapon. Basically, at
that's a warrior.
Altitude,
he's coming clean. He's blowing the whistle. Can you hear it?
You can take a meteorological balloon and get up to 30 kilometers with a crude first-generation weapon. And if you detonated that anywhere over the eastern seaboard, it would probably collapse the eastern grid that generates 70% of our electricity. So it's a really great catastrophic option for a low-tech adversary. Low-tech where,
that's a whistleblower.
So you don't even strictly need
blew his own whistle
to pull this off. And you don't need high-yield, sophisticated weapons. Although that kind of technology is clearly within the grasp. We think
his partner is going out.
Probably have.
Well.
And if the North Koreans
retirement wasn't going to last forever anyhow. We already been ripped off of our pensions. So maybe getting executed ain't so bad.
Director Woolsey,
brave man.
A little bit about attribution now. You were talking about,
you can do something about the past. You can change the future.
The fact that basically we want to see. We've heard that the threats are North Korea and Iran.
This is not a hard thing to turn around, guys.
Are probably sponsoring them.
And remember,
following Sun Tzu,
if you have cheap, mutually assured destruction and protection against it,
Iran and
whether it's from nature
North Korea arguably would be doing the contrary.
or your neighbor, then you can
I'm wondering,
concentrate on much more prosperous survival endeavors than created scarcity and fabricated wars that you structure and you walk right into and you base your whole economy on needing to do it. Right? Yeah. Come on, there's it's never too late as long as you still got breath. Yeah, I know you know what I mean. So let's get to it. At least the next words be from someone's mouth. Release the hydrogen-filled balloons. You know, you go back to your simple little Davy Crockett's and suitcase nukes, and you know, that's child's play compared to going to the stars. You got to. Alright, and you will have your utopia if you're taking care of your pews and keys. Starting with the meaning of life. The first meaning of life is survival. That's not just yours, but your neighbors too. And when you're not wasting your energy, diverting your resources to threaten his, then you can spend all that on protecting yours and show him how to do that too, since he wants to protect himself. Like at the Star Trek level. Go serve life into the universe. Listen, fuckers. I don't know how many more ways I can tell you. I'm just tickled peach that enough people are wise enough to start saying it in meaningful terms too. Because, you know, the 100th monkey, right? One of you can realize it, all of us can. Well, truly I say peace out. Here, let me just give you the address for the. I'll put the link. I'll put the link up on the TV there. That'll be cool, Trek, eh? And you can go listen to this whole broadcast and secure freedom. And they're trying to steer this as it's not just going to turn into a more perception of public safety complex, privatized scams. You know, like, oh, we'll do $1 trillion anti-missile system that'll even detect undetectable simple hydrogen balloons that could be filled up in somebody's fucking backyard in the middle of the night during a solar storm when you couldn't detect it. Which is, you know, when you'd want to send one of these puppies up to do major damage. You could take out New York or Miami or Kansas City, or fuck, you could pop one over my head. Right? But that's nothing, because nature could do it over half or the entire hemisphere. We all know about Carrington, right? The Carrington is so easy to happen. All you have to have is a shields down and get caught in a gamma ray burst. That's probably what sent Carrington wild. Really, we're just so fucking vulnerable, and we're wasting our efforts and our resources on increasing danger rather than mitigating dangers. Boy, and it's leaving everybody with this horrible thing called I'm a murderer in their throat and in their heart and in their mind. You know what that does. All you vets know what that fucking does. How that's just like, okay, now I'm dealing with that forever. And how stupid and illogical it is. Oh, battery's up. Alright.